Live. Hello, everyone. Wasn't sure if I was live then. Hello, welcome, and thanks so much for joining. My name is Anna Stauffenberg, and this is the second Detectives of Sound workshop. So today we're going to be having a nice relaxing session, thinking about sound, just listening to lots of different sounds and engaging in a different way with the sounds that we have in our surroundings. So that's what the second workshop is about. A few weeks ago, I had my first workshop, which was getting us kind of into the groove of learning our favourite facts about sound. This one's a bit more of a relaxing session, so kick back and enjoy. We're also really lucky to have scientist Tom with us, who's going to be telling us a bit about his work. Hello, Tom.
Hi.
Nice to see you again. So we'll come to Tom and his fascinating research in a bit. So this workshop is part of the Echo Happiness Hub. Echo is a charity supporting children and young people with congenital heart disease and their families. Echo's there for families at every stage of their heart journey, and it provides practical information as well as opportunities to connect with other heart families. So the Echo Happiness Hub is all about bringing fun, distraction, and also a bit of learning to families whilst they're at home due to the pandemic or while staying in hospital as their child undergoes surgery, treatment, or recovery. So these workshops are hosted in partnership with our friends at the Centre for Medical Engineering at King's College London. And later in the series, we're also, well, actually for me now at this point in the series, we're joined by some scientists to hear about their work. So you can find out more about how Echo can support you at echo-uk.org. I've written it here just to make it a bit easier. So go to echo-uk.org if you want to find out any more information. Cool, so let's get started with today's workshop, and we're going to meet our special guest Tom in a bit more detail. Remember, we're all in this together, so feel free to say hello on the chat to let us know who is there, and feel free also to use the comment function to share your thoughts or any questions that you have throughout the workshop. Just be mindful of what you're posting and be considerate of others, please. That'd be great. So welcome, Tom. It's so lovely to have you here. How are you doing?
Hi. I'm fine, thank you.
Good. Good. Where are you? So you're in London, are you?
I'm in London, yeah.
Lovely. So Tom, can you tell us a bit about yourself, what it is that you do? What's your job?
So I'm a doctor. I'm a paediatric cardiologist and a fetal cardiologist. So a lot of the parents at Echo, their children will be looked after by paediatric cardiologists like me. I've become a consultant quite recently. So my main clinical job is when I'm at the hospital is I'm a fetal cardiologist. So that's trying to diagnose problems with babies' hearts before they're born rather than after they're born. And that's so we can make sure that we give the right treatment straight away as soon as the baby's born, make sure they're born in the right place. And we can start planning for what we need to do, the operations and the medicines that we need to give after the baby's born. And at the moment, I'm spending most of my time doing a research project. So that's, as a lot of the parents will know, that some children are diagnosed with heart problems before they're born, but unfortunately a lot are diagnosed only after they're born. So it means that during the ultrasound scan that the mum had halfway through pregnancy, it means that heart problem was missed. And the reason for that is it's just really, really hard to see some of these heart problems before the babies are born. So what my research is looking at is ways of making that better using something called artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is this thing that is around us all the time now. We use it all the time, unlocking our phones and looking at our photos and using the internet and searching. And we think that it is, people are quite interested in using it in medicine now to make us better, to help humans, basically. So to look at those ultrasound pictures and when the human might have missed something, like a hole in the heart, the AI might pick it up and help us.
That's really interesting. It's funny as well, because that's not normally a combination you'd think of making, is it? Kind of how to connect your phone and kind of the digital world with your bodies. Well, I guess we're doing that all the time, but in a more kind of medical way. It's really interesting. Cool. I'm going to definitely ask you about that a bit more in a second, Tom. But first, I want to do a little introductory activity to let people know what today's workshop is about. So hopefully my very, very clever tech whiz is on standby to play the first sound, which I'm going to play you. And what I want you to do is, you don't have to do anything. If you actually, no, you do have to do something. If you can whack up the volume on your computer or laptop or however you're watching us today, that would be great. want you just to sit back. It's about 40 seconds long, the sound. Just listen to it, get lost in it, close your eyes if you want to. Tom, it'd be wonderful if you could also take part. Have a think about, where this sound might be taking place. Think about all the different sounds that you're hearing in it. And yeah, enjoy. So have our first sound. That would be wonderful. Are you hearing anything, Tom? Okay, let's see if it comes through. Might be having some Wi-Fi issues. Excellent. Okay, so this is our first sound. Just bear with us. Okay, I think we're going to wait for the sound to come. It will be on its way. So Tom, I'm going to take the opportunity to ask you a bit more. Tell me, how long have you been doing it? So you trained as a doctor, you went to medical school, was it?
Yeah. So I did that, and then training in the UK is really long compared to most countries. So it was about 17 years since I started medical school. I've only just qualified, so it takes a long time.
Oh wow, good going.
Doing this research project, but I do clinical work as well. So once a week I go to hospital and do a fetal clinic.
Excellent. Okay, it sounds like the sound might be on its way. Fingers crossed. So I'm getting a bit of sound coming through. I think this is a classic lockdown issue where everyone's using Wi-Fi at the same time. Let's see if this time works. Okay, so the gods are smiling on us then, and it worked. Thank you, technological wizards backstage. So if we pause it there. So, Tom, and people at home, what I want you to be thinking about, hopefully, I mean, I like to shut my eyes when I listen to sounds like that, just trying to kind of imagine where you are, kind of think about what sorts of feelings it brings up. And that's one of my favorite sounds. I grew up in the countryside, so I love sounds of, well, the sounds that you just heard. So Tom, what kind of, I presume that you could hear the sound there, was it nice and loud?
Yeah.
What kind of, I don't know, what kind of scene was in front of your eyes when you were hearing that?
It sounded very relaxing. It sounded a bit like my garden, actually, sometimes.
Nice.
Yeah, although maybe not that many birds, but
yeah, you're lucky. Although apparently birdsong has gone up in lockdown, or people are engaging with birdsong here. Yeah. So did you imagine yourself in any particular place? Were you in your garden? Were you somewhere different?
Yeah, I imagine my garden in the early morning. Not that I get up early, but yeah, made me think of.
Yeah, kind of dawn time. So that's when a lot of as I said at the start of lockdown, a lot of people started writing in and saying, "Oh yeah, I'm really engaging with my birds and the birds in my garden in a different way, especially at dawn." They're super active. I live kind of in a city, so not so loud with birds, but that is one of my favorite sounds. It makes me feel. You said that you feel relaxed, Tom.
Yeah, it's very relaxing. It's nice.
Yeah, nice. Okay, I'm going to play now the next sound. You'll hear it sounds a bit similar to the last one that we just heard, but there are some different elements to it. And as you're listening to it, I want you to think what the new sounds are that you're hearing. And I'm going to ask you to think about if a story is kind of being told. Do you think that what are the other objects that kind of come into your mind when you're listening to the sounds in this next little soundscape that I'm going to play you, and think about if there's a story being told. So if we could have the next sound, please, that'd be wonderful. Great. So at home, people at home, hopefully you could hear that okay. I wanted you to think kind of, what were the other things that you were hearing there? And was there a story being told there? Did you imagine, I'm going to ask you, Tom, because you're the only person, unfortunately, fortunately, but also sadly, I can interact with, because everyone else is on a screen. So Tom, what could you hear there? Or did you get a little image in your mind there of what was going on?
Yeah, it sounded, well, it's very aquatic, wasn't it? It's very water-based. It sounds, I could hear the gurgling at the start, and then there's some sort of metal bucket. Like someone using, I don't know, I've never used a well before.
Yeah, it's not a very classic object, is it, these days?
It sounds like what I imagine a well would sound like.
Yeah. I find it really interesting. I mean, this is kind of leading on to why I even started doing this workshop in the first place, Detectives of Sound, because I started at the start of lockdown, started really engaging with my surroundings in a much different way. We're all at home now. You're hearing sounds during the day that normally you wouldn't be hearing at home, because you're at home at 1 p.m. when normally you wouldn't be. So I was hearing, my housemate stomping up and down the stairs, or the kettle going all the time, or the dog next door. And I started thinking a lot about, I work in sound anyway. I'm an audio producer, so I'm editing and recording sound all day. But it was really interesting seeing how in lockdown that was kind of transitioning slightly in my mind to start getting images in my mind of stories just through sound.
Yeah.
And that's what I really like about this little soundscape here.
Definitely sounded very rural to me.
Yeah.
I wouldn't imagine that happening in a city like where I live, but
yeah.
Sort of water.
Okay.
Something.
I'm going to play you the next sound now, and I want you to sit back and listen, as always. And Tom, you probably know this sound very, very well, seeing as you work in London. So I'm going to ask you a bit more about your work after we've heard a few more sounds. But for now, I want you to sit back, enjoy, and just kind of think about the images that are coming to your mind when you're listening to these next few sounds. Oh, that was a fun little montage. So, Tom, that last sound, is that a sound that you've ever heard before? Are you used to hearing that?
Not sure what that's. Oh, that.
No, the next one, not that. Forget that you heard that. That last one, kind of the.
Sounds like someone walking on gravel or something.
Yeah. Have you heard that sound before?
I must have done. I didn't recognize anything specific though.
Yeah. What about the middle sound that we heard with the crowds and stuff? What did you imagine yourself in any particular place there?
I think because of the first sound, I imagined Westminster Bridge, which is opposite our hospital actually. So, so we're used to that. The first sound of Big Ben, and then pre-COVID, that bridge in the daytime is always full of tourists. And then buskers and people getting money off the tourists, and very much reminded me of that.
It's very interesting how
it's desolate when I walk across it to get to work now. It's just so weird.
And did that change because obviously towards the end, did you get what was kind of going on at the end?
Someone I wasn't sure where they were when they were walking on the gravel.
As in at the end of the kind of the screaming bit with the crowd and stuff.
I heard like a band or something, like a one-man band or something.
Yeah, something like that. It's interesting, isn't it, how you're imagining. So that middle one is actually of a fairground with a circus. Okay. It's interesting, isn't it, that having heard the Big Ben one, you immediately put that middle one on a bridge. Putting two different sounds together can change how you imagine where it is if you just had that isolated sound by itself. So you work in a hospital. Have you always worked in a hospital in London, or?
I graduated in Manchester and then moved straight down to London. But in medical training, you end up working in a lot of places. So I've worked in lots and lots of hospitals.
And how did you get into your research?
It's really because the biggest problem in our specialty in fetal cardiology is that people aren't referred to us. Once a woman is referred to us, our pickup rate is very high, so we're very, very accurate. The problem is that the screening is the weakest link, just because it's so tricky. So that if you want to improve fetal cardiology, the most obvious thing to improve is people being referred to us in the first place. And the most exciting technology at the moment is AI, I think. So that's why there's a lot of interest in using AI. That's where it came from, the idea, really.
How are you? I'm really interested. Like, what is the benefit of using AI? How is that going to be helping families who are experiencing problems with CH with congenital heart disease?
Well, we know that it is better to be diagnosed with CHD before you're born rather than after, because being born after is very stressful for the families, because usually the babies look completely fine, then they get taken home, and then they become quite sick at home, which is obviously not very nice for the parents. It's much nicer and more organized to know in advance. So if the AI can help, because there are alternative methods, we could try and train people. We could try and just train the sonographers more. And there are charities that do that actually, to try and train sonographers. But the problem is it's just such a difficult task. So we can use AI, which is artificial intelligence, to just help them, like we do in loads of other ways in our life at the moment, then I think that would have a big impact.
So artificial intelligence meaning like, computers and fancy things.
Yeah, artificial intelligence actually doesn't have a very good definition. It doesn't really have a very strict definition at all all it means is something like a computer program that does something that we see as needing human intelligence, or we used to think it needed human intelligence. So medicine is lagging behind everything else because people don't want to take risks in medicine for obvious reasons. We all have loads of products in our home now that use AI. It's not used in the hospital.
Yeah.
And there's a huge resource there where computer programs can help doctors. It's not one thing that people worry about is we're trying to replace people with robots, which actually is not the case. I don't think that will ever happen.
Yeah.
Because we need a human contact.
Yeah, makes all the difference.
It can help us a lot.
I'm interested, so I'm going to play you another sound, Tom, and after that, I mean, this next sound I think probably you know quite well. Okay. I think we might have had a short clip of it before. And I want to ask you about sounds that you hear that you associate with your work. Okay. And I think that probably this next sound is going to be one of those major ones. So watching this at home, I'm not going to give it away. Hopefully haven't already given it away, but have a think. Where would you be if this is the sound that you're listening to? So if we can have the next sound, I think it's about 30 seconds long. So just sit back and listen and try and imagine what it is that you're listening to. Okay, so I wonder if any of you guys at home know that sound. I'd never actually heard that sound properly before, but now having heard it, it's very obvious what it is. But it's fast, isn't it? It's faster than you'd think it would be.
Yeah.
So what is that sound, Tom? I guess that's something you hear quite often, hey?
So that's a sound. It's something called the Doppler Technique, which is a way of using ultrasound to see blood flow.
Okay.
The way that the machine can turn that information into sound. So we use that sound when we're doing the heart scan because that tells us information about how the blood is flowing through the heart and around the blood vessels.
Yeah. So basically, is that the fetus's heartbeat, or is that too simple?
Essentially, okay. What you're hearing is the actual flow of blood caused by the heartbeat
through the fetus. Yeah. It's so fast.
Yeah. So the normal,
much faster than a normal.
So normal adult heart rate is probably about 60. It will go up to about 100 if you're moving around a bit.
Yeah.
A baby, when they're born, is usually about 120 to 180. So much faster for a baby. And the further back you go in the fetus, the faster it is. So up to 180, even up to 200 is normal for babies before they're born.
And what about, so I mean, the sound of my workplace, for example, is, I mean, I wear these headphones non-stop. So I get loads of noise going into my ears all day, and people's voices, music, jingles for the podcast that I make, all these different sounds. Yours are obviously more natural sounds. But I can imagine that your workplace is a very, very loud, fast place, right? What can you just name me, say the top 3 sounds that you associate with?
Well, actually, I would say in paediatric cardiology, it's noisy because there's kids screaming, there's nurses around, it's the ward is quite chaotic. You know, everyone knows that kind of hustle and bustle of the ward. But actually, in fetal cardiology, it's really quite calm and quiet, and there isn't much sound until we play that sound of the heartbeat, the fetal heartbeat. And it's amazing. I think it has such a strong emotional effect, that heartbeat. Sometimes the first link that parents have with their baby, because the pictures actually, unless you're really highly trained, they don't really look like much. They don't really look, now the newer sort of 3D face pictures look like a baby, but most of the ones we use, the 2D pictures, don't look much like a baby. But that sound everyone knows instantly, so that you can see, and the parents a really strong emotional response to that sound.
Yeah, well, it's the first. I mean, sound definitely has a much more emotive effect on me than I think any of my other senses. Hearing things really transports you back. Okay, for the last few minutes of the workshop, because amazingly we're already coming to the end, I'm just going to play you a big old montage of different sounds. They're going to transport you, hopefully, to different places in the world. So think about the questions I've been asking Tom, and think about the questions that I've kind of asked you guys at home already today. Imagine where you are, right? Are you transported to any particular place? What's the weather doing, maybe? So in the footsteps one, that's actually someone tramping through the snow. Think about, different objects that you can hear. Think about if any of them make you feel a particular way, feel particularly stressed or happy or relaxed or anything like that. And as I said, for me, I really think like memories come into my mind a lot when I listen to sounds. So all these different questions, think about them as you're listening to these next few sounds, and yeah, see if you recognize anything. All right, can we have the next few sounds then, please?
Right, 10:49.
Okay, so we'll pause it there. So I'm interested, Tom, we're going to close off now, but I'm interested, what did you think about that last one? What was the story being told in that one?
Some sort of celebration, wasn't it? But I don't know
yeah.
exactly what.
Did you get an idea of what country you were in?
It sounded like, were they speaking Spanish or something?
Yeah, like ole.
Or something. Mexico, maybe.
Yeah, maybe in Mexico. Can you think what kind of event it might have been?
Sounded like a sort of 3 cheers kind of thing, like a birthday or something like
that. so that was a crowd, and actually in the middle, you couldn't hear it, but there was a grunting of a bull.
Oh.
And it was a bullfight.
Right.
I've never been to one, but I feel like I have, having listened to that sound.
Yeah.
So everyone at home, I'd love to know from those different sounds that I've played, if any of them bring back any strong memories for you, or if any of you have been to any of those places. Whether any of them were particularly relaxing, made you feel happy, made you feel, I don't know, brought back a bad memory in a way. Maybe you went to a bullfight and you really hated it. My favourite one, I actually feel really relaxed hearing the sound of fireworks because it brings back lovely memories of being young. Love to know what you all thought. Thank you so much for joining the Happiness Hub today. Write to us, let us know favourite sounds, least favourite sounds. That'd be really lovely. We'd love to hear what you discovered in today's session. So share your thoughts on Twitter using the hashtag Echo Happiness Hub, which you can see there on the screen. If you'd like to speak to someone at Echo or wish to access available support, please visit their website for further details, which, as I said before, was www.echo-uk.org. So thank you so much for joining us today. And thanks so much, Tom. It's been lovely to speak to you. Really interesting to hear more about your research. So my next and final workshop, Detectives of Sound, is on Tuesday, the 6th of April. So I think that's in about 3 weeks' time, where we're going to be getting creative with sound and making some of our own sounds as well. So that's going to be fun. And we hope to see you next Tuesday at the same time for Origami with Lizzie, who's going to chat about her research a bit more. Cool. Thanks so much. Goodbye. Have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday. And thanks again, Tom.
Thanks.
Bye.